First order is approve the minutes from April 8th. Do we have any comments or corrections on the minutes? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I move approval.
I'll support that. This is KM. I would also like to add that the header shows it as being a March meeting, so that just needs a minor correction.
Great.
Thank you. Mine shows April.
It's the header on the second page.
Oh, okay.
Subsequent pages.
Okay.
Good catch.
Yeah, that is a good catch.
Can I also just wanted to add, in addition to the minutes, we did include 2 attachments just as an update from the last meeting. So first, I believe member Eddie requested the pedestrian count analysis. So we have a comparison from March 1st to May 1st, both for 2019 and 2020. So you get an indication of that. And then in addition, I included a summary of our economic relief committee and the conversations that we had following the board's approval of those funds. And so you can see we got a meeting in April. At that meeting, we approved $20,000 of funding for the creation of the Love Local GR website, and then subsequently approved purchase of tables and chairs to help support businesses with outdoor seating. That's some work that's still ongoing. But total amount remaining to be spent from that $200,000 that was approved is $126,000. So I just wanted to point out those supplemental documents that were included with the minutes.
Anyone surprised by the traffic, or not traffic, but pedestrian counts?
I am a little bit, but some of the upticks that I saw, I assume part of it was some of these construction workers down here at Oaks and Cherry in this area.
Yeah, I bet it is. So nice to see all the construction people back to work. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I do have a motion from, I believe, Diana, and second from KM. All in favor?
I'll do a roll call, actually. Louise,
sorry about that.
Hop on yet? Mayor Bliss?
Yes.
Jermel?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
And Rick?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, next is the financial statements. So Jenna, you want to take us through it?
Yes. Good morning, everybody. Before you this morning, you have your financial statements for the period ending April 30, 2020. These are the first 10 months of your fiscal year ending June 30, 2020. I'll point out that all of your school tax increment and local tax increment revenues have been distributed for the year. However, I still expect that there will be a reduction in those general revenues due to 2019 assessment appeals, which the city treasurer records at the end of the fiscal year. So probably in June, you'll see that impact come through. I also will point out that your on statement B line item in the local tax fund, which is the administration line, is over budget right now, but Tim and I both submitted the reallocation from DDA admin to various DDA projects, the Downtown Improvement District and the Monroe North Tifa, all the payroll costs from October 19th through March 28th. So you'll see that reduction in that admin line when I prepare the the May 31 financial statements. Otherwise, your expenditures for FY20 are trending below budget, so no worries there. And with that, I'll ask for any questions or for your approval on statement C, statement D, which serves as your warrant.
Any questions for Jenna? We're getting down to the last couple payments for the arena bonds.
Yeah, you've got 2 left, the May 1, 2021 and the May 1, 2022. So just 2 left, and then we'll stop collecting the school tax increment revenues.
Right. Okay, hearing no questions, can I get a motion to accept the April 30th, 2020 financial statements?
I'll make
So
that motion.
moved. KM.
Ma'am.
Do we have a second?
I second it. This is Rosalind.
Thanks, Rosalind. If any other comments or questions? If not, will you take a roll call vote, please, Amanda?
Absolutely. Luis?
Yes.
Okay, great. Jamal?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Diane?
Diana says yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Jana.
Thank you.
Next is the fiscal year 2021 budget adoption. So this went to the city commission and was approved. So we need to adopt this. Tim, you want to take us through it?
Yeah, real quick. So this is our final step in the budget process. As Chair Nguyen mentioned, our budgets were presented to the City Commission back in April, on April 28th, and Commission approved your recommendation for the 3 DDA budgets. They're now back to you for adoption. I did want to note on the revenue side for the non-tax, we will be seeing a reduction in rental fees collected through the end of FY21 for the dash lots. So the city is proposing to reduce the monthly parking fee for 50% for April, and then the proposal is for 25% for May and June. We don't at this point expect that will carry into FY21, but it would reduce our estimates to close for FY20. So just wanted to point that out. But otherwise, no change to the recommendation that you presented to the commission.
Okay. Any questions on that?
Move to adopt.
Is that Greg?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Yes, KM.
Thanks, KM. Any other comments or questions? Okay, Amanda, take the roll call vote.
Luis?
Yes.
Mayor Bliss?
Yes.
Jamal?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Diana?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
And Rick?
Yes. All right, thank you. Next is the Dash Memorandum of Understanding. Tim?
Yep. Thank you. So this item is a request to continue our commitment to Dash funding for the upcoming fiscal year. So this is in our FY21 budget. And the request is to approve the resolution and the MOU with the Monroe North Tax Increment Finance Authority, as well as the City of Grand Rapids. So real quick to get into some of the specifics. So as proposed, it's a 1-year extension for the period. So this would get us through June 30th, 2021. The funding level and the funding request for the DDA is the same as it was for fiscal year 20 in an amount of $270,000. For reference, the TIFA share is $80,000. The city carries the lion's share at a little over $2.2 million. Because we use tax increment funds for the DDA portion, funding in the MOU, as identified in the MOU, is for acquisition of public facilities and transit vehicles. And so that is just important to note, particularly as it relates to the service reduction that has happened as a result of COVID. So the buses aren't currently in operation, although we do expect them to come back online here in the next few weeks, currently scheduled for May 26th. While there has been a service disruption because our contribution is for actual purchase of the vehicles, we don't expect to see any cost reductions. However, again, the city does carry the bulk of the costs for running the service, and we do expect that after May 26th, that service would be back up and running. The current proposal is that service would come back Monday through Saturday, running until 10 p.m. The conversation around Sunday service and any extended hours will happen among the parties, and with a decision kind of based on what's happening on the ground related to COVID and the reopening of businesses. With that, I would be happy to take any questions or entertain a motion.
Okay. Hearing none, we would need a motion to approve the MOU.
So moved.
Support.
We have a motion and support. Amanda?
Yes. Luis,
Yes.
KM,
Yes.
Jamal,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Diana,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
and Rick.
Yes. All right, thank you. The next is the Gallery Apartments Agreement Amendment. Tim, you're up. You're still up.
Yeah, I'm gonna hang out a little while longer. So this item's a request to approve a revised payment schedule for the gallery at Fulton, and I'll kind of walk you through some of the specifics. Back in 2008, the DDA entered into a development agreement with 2 West Fulton to facilitate the development of the gallery. And as a reminder, that's at the southwest corner of Division and Fulton. As part of that agreement, a promissory note was executed that was used to finance a portion of the land acquisition costs. The total amount of that note was $898,848, and it accrues interest at 4.5%. For the initial period, the initial 5 years, so starting in 2009, there were interest-only payments, and then following that, repayment was based on the schedule that was included in your memo. So starting at $25,000 and then building up to $100,000. Because of additional principal payments that the developer and owner has made in 2014 and 2015, the outstanding balance on the loan right now is $388,848,000. With interest paid through the term of the loan, through the term of the note, with interest paid, the total amount would be $431,840. And to better align the existing and projected cash flows for the project, they are proposing a revised repayment schedule. And the proposal, as indicated in the memo as well as in the resolution, is that they would move to a monthly payment plan. So in the amount of a little over $4,000 a month, amounting to a little over $48,000 a year. And then on May 1st, 2024, they would make the final payment for principal and interest, which would amount to $446,000, $345.75. So after reviewing this with the legal, as well as the developer, we are recommending approval of the resolution to revise the payment schedule for the gallery. And I know that was a lot of numbers to throw at you over a computer screen, so I'm happy to take any questions if you want to dive into those a little bit more.
Questions? All right. We would need a motion to approve the agreement.
So moved.
Who is that?
Luis.
Luis. Ah, Luis, hey.
This is KM support.
Okay, Amanda.
Mayor Bliss,
Yes.
Jamal. Are you muted?
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Diana,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
and Rick.
Yes. Okay, item number 7 is the 12 Weston school tax capture. Tim?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we just had a brief conversation about the school tax, but as a reminder, the DDA has a priority on school tax capture. However, we can only use those funds to repay bonds on the arena. And since, as we talked about, those payments are coming to an end in fiscal year 22, we have more than sufficient, and we have more than sufficient revenue captured annually. So this year we're going to be sending back a little over $4.5 million to the state on the school tax, above and beyond what we captured to repay the bonds. We also have a reserve fund in place. And so we have more than enough school tax increment at our disposal to make those bond payments. And so in order to assist the 12 Weston project, receive additional reimbursement through their brownfield approval. So when this project was initially approved, they came to the DDA for a grant of $35,000 for a downtown enhancement grant, but they also went to the city's brownfield authority and received approval. And so in order to increase the reimbursement through the brownfield, they are requesting that the DDA forego their capture of school tax. And as I mentioned, we have plenty of reserve as well as remaining capture to meet our obligations to repay the bonds on the arena. So the request is to approve the resolution agreeing to exclude the capture of school tax increment revenue for the 12 Weston project.
So Tim, just a question, just to remind us or explain, how does the brownfield increase based on school tax? How does that work?
So the brownfield has different eligible activities, and I may ask Dick when, if he's on the call, because he may have had some history with this project specifically. But the eligible activities under DDA and the brownfield authority are different, and brownfield is able to capture the school tax increment to use to reimburse some of those eligible activities. But Dick, is there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, let me just add, Rick, the basic difference is the DDA can only capture school increment to pay debt service on the arena bonds. The brownfield authority can use tax increment for a project. They can use all school tax increment.
Okay.
So in effect, the tax increment now, school tax increment will shift to the brownfield and this project. Yep.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? We would need a motion to approve the foregoing of the tax capture, correct?
I move approval. This is Diana.
Support. This is KM.
This is Jim. I do have a question. Sorry, I was trying to unmute.
Go ahead.
Well, I just want to clarify that. Maybe this is a Dick question, but do I understand correctly that we cannot, we can only capture school increment for the arena bonds, but we can forego the increment so that another entity can use it?
Yes, that's correct.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow, that's interesting that
We
have that option.
You've done it on a limited basis for I think 3 or 4 projects. The Waters building is one example. The Hyatt across street, the Warner building was another one, and I think we did a third one. Tim, you recall?
It was the
Studio
AC Hotel project across from the
right.
Courtyard by Marriott.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And-
Jim, if I may, Jim, the brownfields really don't have nearly as much oversight in terms of the capture. For example, they're allowed even to capture the local library capital. Libraries are not allowed to opt out of the capture the way they can for corridor improvements, the DDA, the TIFA, the smart zones. So brownfields are a special animal where I think the state looks at the captures as investment and removal of hazardous materials.
And that's helpful. And just to refresh my memory, the state makes schools whole for this school increment that's being captured in both cases, whether it's the brownfield or for the arena bonds?
Yes, except, well,
Yes.
for the operating, for the 18 mills operating, yes, they do.
Okay. Thank you. Well, the follow-up is there's not going to be a windfall when we're done paying the arena bonds. It's not going to create a windfall for the schools.
It will for the state.
For the state, right, but not for, yeah, gotcha. Not for local school revenue.
Not directly.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is Greg, and this is sort of a contextual question that may not be on this resolution. So if it's out of order, let me know. But just to try to understand this process, is it possible for the arena to reissue bonds for some more general purpose, largely to keep these revenues local versus sending them back to Lansing?
Greg, unfortunately, no.
Yeah, good question, though.
Yeah.
It was definitely not out of order.
By statute, all of the bonds had to be issued by the end of 1994.
Okay.
So Dick, it would require a change in the statute to do that.
Correct.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Did we get a
We
motion?
do have a motion and a second.
Okay. Go ahead,
Luis?
Amanda.
Was that Luis?
Yeah, Luis, do you choose to support?
Yes.
Mayor Bliss?
Yes.
Jermel?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
And Rick?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, item number 8 is art prize support.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. This year, Art Prize staff and city staff are gearing up for Art Prize 11 for 2020. And for the past 11 years, we've been able to support Art Prize in various ways that align with DGRI goals and the GR Forward Master Plan specifically. This year, we have continued to work with Art Prize to continue to find ways to support their initiatives that help DGRI, Art Prize, and the city bring unique placemaking opportunities to Grand Rapidians that not only help to bring new experiences for our city and the people within it, but also affects at large our local businesses that help to stimulate our economy. Today, I have Derek Call that's participating with his team here from Art Prize that will be able to talk to you a little bit more about their plan for the next 3 years of Art Prize / Project 2 for their series. And DGRI's proposed support to help fund featured public projects, equity grants, our ambassador training, and a shared message between our two organizations on the progress we've continuing to do down here in Grand Rapids to help build a better city for all. So with that, I'd like to pass the torch over to Derek to give a quick overview of what they're planning to do this year. Amanda, are we able to share the what was in the agenda packet?
I didn't see anything in the. Yes. Just 1 second. I'll grab that for you.
Thank you.
The proposal?
Yep.
Yeah.
Amanda, this is Mandy. You should be able to just reshare that PowerPoint. Those slides are in there now.
Here we are.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Derek?
Perfect. Yeah. Thanks, Kim. Thanks for the introduction. And good morning, everyone. We're going to start off with my colleague, Kevin Bice, who oversees, or is our artistic director and oversees our exhibitions. He's going to kind of give you an update as to what we're planning for Art Prize 2020 coming up this fall. And then myself and Ariel will take you through kind of the specifics of the proposal for sponsorship. So Kevin, if you're here, and I know you are, you can take it away.
Okay, thank you all for this time and for this opportunity. So the first couple slides here are about a couple of new and exciting things we're doing for Art Prize in 2020, and all of those things are still true. But I think I'm going to use this time to talk to you all a little bit more instead about how we're planning to do Art Prize this year in the midst of this challenges that are presented by COVID-19 and the need for health and safety and just really radically rethinking how we gather together for arts and culture events as a community because we're all still in the midst of figuring that out. So we've spent the last several weeks working really closely with city leaders as well as our board of directors to rethink some of the fundamentals of Art Prize and think about how can we hold an event this year that's safe and that still, you know, kind of delivers on our mission to connect artists and people and to activate downtown. You know, we've looked at that from many different angles. We've also considered, you know, perhaps the possibility of just delaying a year to 2021. We had a board meeting on Monday, and the board was unanimous in their support for our plan to continue with our 2020 event. And so holding those dates and still holding an art prize, but it's going to be an art prize that looks a fair amount different than art prizes of the past. We're going to emphasize more outdoor space and outdoor artwork because from all the guidelines that we're seeing, gathering can be a little less restricted when people are in outdoor spaces. Sorry, this isn't really on the slides because this is all very new stuff. I'll talk about this stuff too, very briefly, but I'm sure that you're all curious about how does Art Prize work in the age of coronavirus. So that's what I wanted to touch on. So we're going to really focus the exhibition in three types of venues. Outdoor spaces are going to be really important this year. Those are things like city parks and also some privately held outdoor space. We're also going to work with small business owners to put artwork in windows. This is something that some businesses already do during Art Prize, during past Art Prize events. It allows for smaller works that can't be placed outside to be safely displayed, and small businesses to participate without having to worry about strict head counts versus their square footage and worrying about the difference between sort of Art Prize visitors and paying customers if they have to limit people in their spaces. And then the third type of venue would be a small number of very large indoor spaces where we can really work with partners like DeVos Place and Grand Rapids Art Museum to ensure that we have only a safe amount of people in a venue at a given time, and ensure that we can spread people out and we can spread artwork out in a way that we can still have an indoor gallery experience, but in a way that's a little more spaced out and safer. There's lots of changes in our budget and in other kind of operating plans. Our education programs look very different, assuming that school field trips are not going to come back quickly in the fall. I won't go into all that, but just suffice it to say that we're doing an art prize this year. It's going to look different, and we're excited about following the creative lead of artists, because artists are incredible problem solvers. So just quickly, what's in these slides? If you can go to the next slide, I'll just touch on these very quickly, because this is a deck that was created before we finalized all these plans with the board on Monday. But all of this stuff is still true. So we're dividing up the map into 3 districts this year, and those will have kind of different programmatic focuses: Art Prize West, Art Prize North, Art Prize South. If you can go to the next slide. We are moving ahead with planned enhancements to our mobile app. Sorry, if you can go back one. We're moving ahead with planned enhancements to the mobile app. So voting is going to be really important this year, because this is an Art Prize competition year, and we're introducing new ways to vote, which is going to be really exciting, and really, I think, more important than ever, because the voting process is entirely digital, and so it's something that people can participate in, whether they feel safe venturing out or not. And so we're kind of leaning into our technological prowess and skill set to ensure that all audiences can still access Art Prize in one way or another in a safe way. So I'll let Ariel and Derek talk a little bit more about specific partner objectives. I just wanted to give you all that update on what Art Prize looks like this year.
Awesome, thanks, Kevin. Yeah, you can advance the slide, please. So the next slide is just our partnership objectives. We want to increase brand visibility and reinforce DGRI's commitment to obviously do good in the community. And we want to make sure that the work that we do fits within the mission and goals of DGRI and the DDA as well. Next slide. So here's the investment summary. This is a 3-year deal. Each year will be an investment of $50,000. And like Kevin said, Art Prize is happening this year for 2021 and 2022. We're still discussing what those years look like and when we see the return of Project 2. And then just to go through the components of the sponsorship a little more in detail, you can go to the next slide. So Kevin mentioned, especially this year with things being the way that they are, an increase in our featured public projects. This is the large scale outdoor art that you see around the city during an art prize competition and also during a project year. The funding last year for Project 1 went specifically to the Blue Bridge activation, which was the voice tunnel. So you see there that in a normal art prize year, we plan to award about $85,000 in grants to artists for this program of the outdoor art. In 2020, that is going to be more because we are going to be putting more outdoor art. Like Kevin just said, people are a little more comfortable being outside right now. So we want to increase what their experience is. The funding goes alongside the Fry Foundation and the Ephraimson Family Fund as well. So there will be, in a normal art prize year, 4+ outdoor sites within the art prize footprint. And then we give DGRI visibility around those specific installations. You can go to the next slide, please. As you all know, the downtown ambassadors somehow are everywhere, especially during art prize. And they get approached quite often during an art prize event with questions and requests for assistance from visitors. And so we like to shed a spotlight on them during art prize and Project 1, or project years, excuse me. The last couple of years I've gone in and with our volunteer manager, and we've done a really great in-depth orientation for the ambassadors so that they know the ins and outs of our events. We recognize them and thank them in our public events. And then we also invite them to attend the Art Prize Volunteer Appreciation reception as part of that, so that they feel that they're part of our volunteer corps, and we want to make sure that they have the tools and resources to be able to assist visitors that approach them on the streets. And next slide. Ariel, you want to take it away?
Yes, thank you. So as mentioned, this is a customized media package to be able to share all the great work that DGRI does in collaboration with Art Prize, but also in the community as a whole. So there'll be dedicated social media content that will talk about featured public projects and the ambassador program, as well as any other initiatives that DGRI is looking to highlight. Our team will work with DGRI to craft these topics in our social media posts, and then they'll be shared on our channels leading up to and during the competition. Next slide, please. And then lastly, sponsor visibility and hospitality benefits. So DGRI will be message and signage, media, and PR communications around featured public projects. And then support will also be recognized on our website, mobile app, and event guide with logo recognition. And then you can also see some of those hospitality benefits with our clubhouse and other events. As Kevin mentioned, we're kind of working through reimagining what these events might look like. So those benefits might shift a little bit as some things have to move to an online platform, but we'll just keep everyone up to date on what our plans will be. And then with that, I will hand it back over to Kim.
Thank you. So there is a recommendation before you to approve major event sponsorship to Art Prize and Project 2 for the 2020 through 2023 in the amount of $50,000 per year over 3 years.
Any
With
other
that,
questions?
we'll take any questions you might have.
Okay, hearing none. Can I get?
Hi, this is Jim.
Oh, hey, Jim.
Hi. Hesitating in how to raise this, but I got to say that I appreciate all these things. They're important things. They're important components of what DGRI does and the DDA funds. We've talked a lot, and it's a pretty integral part of our downtown plan, GR Forward, to increase the diversity of who visits downtown. And I see in our agenda packet mention of equity grants. I didn't see equity or diversity mentioned a single time in the presentation from Art Prize. I would really like to see, and a number of our grants in the past have emphasized how to bring a more diverse audience downtown for events that are going downtown. And that, I think, should be one of the significant objectives of any of these grants. So I'm not sure where to go with that. I'm really concerned that this is a 3-year grant and would really like to see during those 3 years more emphasis on some of the successes we've had in attracting a more diverse audience to the kinds of things that are the cool things that are going on downtown.
Derek, you want to take that? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we sort of on purpose put that equity grant funding looped in with the featured public projects. We are constantly talking to people within our community. I had a call with the Hispanic Chamber, Hispanic Center yesterday, in fact, about bringing an art project to Art Prize. So the equity grants and our work with outreach within all aspects of our community is still ongoing. And it's just been kind of lumped in, like I said, with the featured public projects. In project one, I don't know if you attended or not, but you saw that we were out in the community. We had installations and very successful events out in MLK Park, and also over on the west side at the Tanglefoot building. And so that work is ongoing, and we are out in the community, and those equity grants are still out there. Kevin, do you have anything to add?
Yeah. Yeah, and I apologize for not mentioning it before, but just sort of given everything that's happening and the challenges kind of in this new environment with the virus of gathering crowds together for cultural events at all, we kind of prioritized explaining how we're going to do this safely without canceling the whole thing, because that's kind of been the question that's been top of mind is just how to do the event in a very basic sense while keeping our visitors safe. But to dig in a bit more into that issue, Derek is correct that those grants that we give out for those public artworks, those really emphasize, how do those, we have a lot of control over what artists get those grants, and so our priority in that is how do we engage more diverse communities, and how do we bring more people downtown and encourage a sense of belonging and inclusion for the whole of Grand Rapids. And I think that the art speaks volumes within that. And I think, as Derek mentioned, Project One was a big success in that way, but other featured public projects in past art press competitions have accomplished that as well.
If I could just follow up, I think my concern was more on the DGRI DDA side in what our expectations should be for these enhancement grants that we enter into. So I wish that we had put more into that regarding how, for example, in publicity, how are we going to market this to diverse audiences? And we ought to be supporting that effort of marketing to not just the general public, but to specific communities that generally don't come downtown. Just my 2 cents. Want to encourage staff to look at that, to push that, to emphasize that in future agreements.
Yeah, I agree with that, and that's something that we work on every year, and we're happy to collaborate in that, because that's a really key marketing message. I agree.
And I'll just jump in. I think thanks for raising that point, Jim. I think our marketing efforts continue to be to create a welcoming, diverse environment in downtown, and that will certainly continue. So in addition to the work Art Prize does, we of course use our channels, our connections both in the city and regionally to invite those, all members of the community to come downtown. And Art Prize has always been kind of a beacon for those things, and we'll continue to do that.
Yeah. So go ahead.
So this is Mayor Bliss. I just want to add a few thoughts. So I appreciate this presentation. I was glad to see it on our agenda, and I'm really glad to see that Art Prize is moving forward and planning for this year. If anyone can think of ways to do an event safely, especially one that is largely outside, I think we can do it. I see us as being leaders as we think about how do we safely re-engage public spaces and have events. And I think that's absolutely critical as we look to recovery. And when I think about impact downtown, Commissioner Talon, I appreciate your input, but I also believe that we need to plan some of these events to support all of our businesses downtown, especially our minority-owned businesses that we've recently encouraged and supported to come downtown. They're going to be successful and recover from this pandemic by having more foot traffic and having people support their business. And so my hope is that as we move into the fall, we're able to really be an example of how we can get people back to supporting a lot of these businesses that are really struggling right now.
Yeah, I would echo those comments. I think it's probably more important these days that we try to continue Art Prize as safely as we can, but it's probably more important than ever that we get people safely downtown and really comfortable re-engaging, as you said, with the businesses and with themselves. And, I couldn't agree more. Anybody else have any comments or questions?
This is Jim. When others are finished, I'd like to add one more comment if I could.
Mr. Chairman, this is Greg. Are there, does DGRI, or maybe it's more of the city, but I was wondering, with the environment that we're in, if we anticipate additional costs or expenses in having this type of event for DGRI or in the ways that we would support it?
This is Kim. I'm not anticipating additional costs. I know, as we start gearing up to get back into our public spaces, we're going to have to think creatively on seating and opening up our public spaces and potentially zoning and encouraging people to wear masks. I think we're going to have to work creatively with our Prize staff on what that looks like once we know more and once we gear up a little bit closer to. But at this time, we're not anticipating any additional costs from the city in order to host our Prize this year. Am I right in saying that, Kevin and Derek?
Yeah, yes, that's correct. And from our part, I mentioned earlier that, to rethink the event in this way has meant adjusting a lot of our various budgets for different types of programming and the activities that we do. But one budget that we didn't reduce is our visitor services. But we are anticipating that what visitor services looks like in this environment will be quite a lot different. I mean, are people going to want to take and touch a paper map? Are people going to, what kind of staffing do we have to do to ensure that we don't have too many people in one space at one time? And so the way that we're thinking about our activities and our staffing around that is shifting a lot, but we're anticipating that that's going to be, take over some of the expense that we normally incur in doing an event like this. Is going to change quite a lot to do things safely. And so we're in the process right now of working with city officials to figure out exactly what that looks like.
Okay, Jim.
But that's our that's our plan for spending money, not for you all.
Yeah. Well, if I could just add one more thing to Member McNeely's question, I don't think we anticipate additional costs for Art Prize specifically. I think, as we've talked about, we see some additional role for DGRI and helping to activate public spaces in general as we're kind of moving into the summer and hopefully as things reopen. So thinking about things like tables and chairs and infrastructure, which I mentioned earlier, but also how do we demarcate, for example, Rosa Parks, so that people understand what social distancing is in place. How are you 6 feet away from another? So we are continuing to think about those things, and would expect that those would be in place by ArtPrize, but those would by no means be specific to the event.
Okay, so these are all great questions, and as chair, in the interest of time, if we could have a motion and a second, and then we'll finish, Jim, with any final comments, so that we can keep the schedule moving.
I'll make the motion.
Support.
Who's supported?
I said I'd support, but I heard somebody else too.
Okay.
Greg, was that Greg?
Yep.
Okay. Any other comments, Jim? Do you want to make a final follow-up?
Yeah, just one last follow-up, and just to nudge a little more on the concern I have with seeing a more diverse downtown visitor demographic. And I totally recognize and totally support the need to support our businesses, to get us, get things going again, get folks back to work, get people downtown again. I also recognize that historically, people of color have always been underrepresented, and we have a huge opportunity in the dollars that we're spending right now related to COVID, related to trying to get things going again downtown, to make a difference in that, in what's happening with in terms of people of color. So just want to keep that in the front all the time, because we have opportunities to change that now, and I want us to keep that in mind as we move forward. Thanks.
Yeah, Jim, I think we can keep that in mind too, as Tim and his team offers up suggestions for the money that we've allocated towards re-engagement. So I think, Tim, if we can put that on the top of our list as something we need to address, I think that would be helpful too. So
Yeah, totally agree and share that sentiment, and we'll continue to prioritize that.
Okay.
That's
always part of our thinking.
And this is Jamel. I agree. I just wanted to say that I agree as well with Jim's comment, being in the thick of it. I have so many additional emotions around this that I won't get into, just as a African American male, but also as a business owner who made a significant investment, even personally. The fact that my house is tied up in the success of us moving to Studio Park because of all the walking traffic, which, by the way, we've only seen a couple construction workers walk by. But yeah, it's I continue to look around and say, what more can I do personally with each platform that I'm a part of? And therefore, it's saying, what can we do more as a city, as a DDA, and obviously as community to take advantage of this opportunity, because we're aware that a threat or a crisis has its way of uniting people to come alongside and help each other out and be kind and let folk over in traffic and support these businesses. But what can we do now to ensure that all of this stuff isn't just a one-time thing going forward?
Sounds good. Anything else? Otherwise, Amanda, would you take our roll call vote?
Luis?
Yes.
KM?
Yes.
Jermel?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Diana?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 9. Yes, thanks, Derek, Kevin, and Ariel for giving us some info on that. Good luck this year for sure. Item number 9 is the Jefferson Pedestrian Safety Enhancements. Is Mr. Miller on the call?
I am. Good morning.
Morning.
So this project was actually conceived prior to March, and we started having conversations with representatives from Mercy Health St. Mary's, but it was amplified quite a bit after March due to the health crisis. And so St. Mary's really was pushing to get some of this pedestrian infrastructure and connectivity across Jefferson to their campus. And so we've been working with them over the course of the last couple of months to refine this and figure out how to proceed with it. And it's from everyone's standpoint, it's a high priority. They've actually gone out to last week and did some pavement markings to establish where the utilities are. So they're ready to go in terms of building one of these crosswalks probably within the next week or so. So I'll take you through briefly what these are, and you have a diagram in your packet about where they are and what's going on with them. There's essentially two crosswalks across Jefferson Avenue. The first one on the north side is just north of Maple Street at an existing crosswalk that connects east to west or west to east. And really what they're doing there is they're putting in what they call a RRFB, which is a rapid rectangular rapid flashing beacon. You can see something similar on Bridge Street where we just put in the river crossing installation. So that basically allows someone, yeah, that slide right there. So that's the slide, that's the RRFB, and they're putting two of those in. So basically a pedestrian can push that button and the little black rectangle will flash and let drivers know that there's someone crossing there. This is all about creating a better and safer connection to and from the hospital, from the bus stop, from Hartside, and even from parking lots that are adjacent to the hospital. And this is really the result of, as I said, some early thinking, but really amplified by the coronavirus and the response to that. So that's the north installation. And then the south installation, which is just nestled in between the two BRT stops, that actually will have a removable refuge median in it. And you can see what that looks like in the slide. So it's a removable median. The reason that they've elected to go with a removable median in this case is that street may get reconfigured someday for bike lanes, and they don't want to build a lot of heavy infrastructure there and then have to take it out. So these give us the ability to sort of put these things in, see how they work, see how the street functions, and then move on from there. So these are the two projects that are associated with this. And as I said, they plan to start them as soon as possible. I think the plan is to begin the north one this next week. So with that said, the north one costs $29,951, and the south one costs $15,867 for a total of about $45,818. So we're asking for an amount not to exceed $46,000. This is really the intent as an investment to assist Mercy Health during these uncertain economic times, and really to support them, their potential patients, and their critical care workers, and really also building a broader connected pedestrian network within the downtown. So I can take questions or comments.
Any questions for Mark?
This is KM. I would move approval.
Do we have a second?
Second.
That was the mayor?
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Great. Luis,
Yes.
Jamal,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Diana,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
and Rick.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item number 10 is the downtown bike infrastructure improvements. Mark, you're up again.
Thank you. So this project is another one that we had been collaborating with the city of Grand Rapids and specifically Mobile GR about what kind of improvements we can do to the bicycle infrastructure in the downtown. Again, it was pushed a little bit harder and amplified post-COVID because of the desire to get more mobility options downtown and to provide safer and more connectivity within some of the installations that are already in the downtown. So this is really what I would characterize as a bicycle improvement package. It's got 5 different elements in it that are outlined pretty specifically within your packet. And I'll just highlight those very briefly. The first one is what we refer to as new bicycle facilities. These are on-street bicycle lanes and their connections, and they're really about creating some shared lane markings in certain strategic locations, a new signed crosswalk at the 6th Street Riverwalk near the 6th Street Bridge, and then some bike lane striping and restriping. And that equates to about $4,000 in investment. And again, these are sort of outlined in the memo for you. Then there's also improvements to Division Avenue Better Bikeway, and these are just continually making modifications, improvements, and adjustments to that as we continue to study the pilot aspect of it. So this includes some additional green markings at the highway interchange just north of Michigan. It creates some additional green bike markings at Crescent Street, and then 2 new green bike boxes at Fountain Street to begin to, again, create a better connective system there with that better bikeway. That translates to about $18,000 to $19,000 of investment. And then the third item is actually, a whole bunch of different smaller scale things that relate to bicycle parking and repair stands. So in this line item, we are recommending that the city, we invest in at least 40 stainless steel bike racks, 64 black polyvinyl bike racks, so these coated bike racks, 2 different kinds. So that's up to that's 104 at least. The city will be negotiating with their providers and will probably try to get more out of them if we can. And then an additional 2 bike stands that we'll be installing downtown that for repair purposes. So that's going to be about a $50,000 investment for all of those things, and that we will work diligently, or the city will work diligently to get those installed throughout the downtown. As a side note, where we just talked about the crosswalks, we just installed a repair station by the BRT station on, I think it was Sunday that they installed it. So we're excited that some of this stuff is getting online very incrementally, and hopefully we can begin to move some of that stuff forward quicker in the coming months. And then item number 4 is bikeway design services. And this is really about hiring a consultant to begin some of the design work that's needed to move certain projects forward and get them to a point where we can begin talking about implementation. And that includes Ionia Street from Fulton to Logan, Century Street from Granville to Logan, and then Turner, Mount Vernon front from Wealthy to 4th Street, and then Pearl Street connecting to the west side from Division to Lake Michigan. So all of those are in the city's bicycle action plan, and they all also are supportive of our goal 3 in the GR Forward Master Plan. So this is really setting up for that future implementation, and it's an investment of about $40,000 for those 4 projects in the design services. And really it's about developing designs, potentially looking at pilot options, and then getting some opinions of probable cost where we can make some decisions about what we can invest in the future to implement these things. And then the 5th item is an additional design service for looking at the Division Avenue Bikeway a little bit more, looking at particular specific barrier options, phasing, and then some opinion of probable cost and maintenance discussions for that bike lane. So that's hiring a consultant to also do that work, and that's about $12,000. So this entire bike package is, the request is $125,000 not to exceed. We should note that Goal 3 reviewed these on April 29th and recommended forwarding them to the DDA to consider. And the other thing to note is that this is also a budgeted amount that's included in the fiscal year 20 budget as a specific line item for bicycle facility improvements. So that's about what I have to say. If you have any questions or comments, I'm here to take them.
This is Talon. I would love to move approval of this.
So this is Diana, I support.
Okay, before any other comments or questions, can I remind everyone, if you're not speaking, to put your your thing on mute. It sounds like someone has a TV going on in the background and it's interrupting some of the discussion. Any other questions or comments?
Quick question on bike usage and just in general for benchmarking of mobility usage. Do we have numbers? I'm assuming we do for cars, and we've seen earlier in the meeting the walking numbers, but do we have similar numbers for bike usage?
I can speak a little bit to that. I don't know if we have specific numbers for downtown Grand Rapids. Getting some feedback here. But we do know that anecdotally, nationwide and worldwide, that bike usage has gone up quite a bit over the course of the last 2 to 3 months. So I don't know if anybody, I think maybe Kristen Bennett might be in the audience and from Mobile GR, she may be able to answer that, or maybe someone from DGRI staff has other information.
Mark, this is Kristen Bennett with Mobile GR staff. So I can respond. So one of the elements of the North Division pilot project was actually installation of bicycle-specific tube counters. So we put those out seasonally. We have a work order in to put them back out once the sweeping takes place, the early sweeping. So we've been monitoring those specific bike lanes since they were installed. And then DGRI does have a number of counters, largely in pedestrian areas, but they do include locations like the Blue Bridge. We've talked to them about a number of locations that may relate to trails where we see mixed traffic of bicycles and pedestrians. We also restarted doing some a partnership count with the Greater Grand Rapids Bicycle Coalition last fall. So they used to do some volunteer counting. We kind of amped that up to another level. And we get count volunteers online, and we're looking to do that again this summer and again in the fall. And we do those in coordination with a national documentation project that's been occurring for probably 12 or more years, where everyone around the country is counting around the same time throughout weekdays and weekends. So we do have some spot data, but not necessarily the same level of data that we have about automobile traffic at this time. I would anecdotally say my own experience when I'm out right now doing field work for work is that I'm seeing a much higher level of bicycle traffic, a lot of it on major streets because there's just less vehicular traffic.
Chair, this is Talon.
Go ahead, Jim.
And maybe this is for Kristen. I thought that the Bicycle Coalition does an annual or semi-annual count, and that includes some sites downtown. Do we have any of that data available?
We do. They used to do that for a few years, several years ago, and then it kind of got waylaid because of just lack of volunteer support. They no longer had staff. They used to have a staff person. And so we tried to pick that up last year. I have a lot of experience doing count programs in my previous municipal jobs. So I sort of took our program approach and we utilized their reach as an organization. And so we were able to get volunteers for about a dozen different sites, which included the same 4 sites they used to count in the past. And that included a location over by like Seward and Lake Michigan Drive, some of the river trail locations. And a lot of that is to start to just pick up some data. We had a little bit of a short count last fall because that's the week that the big straight line windstorm came in. So they weren't counting on Wednesday night and Thursday when that storm was really active. But we had to have counts from the previous weekend at Monday and Tuesday and the following weekend at various locations, which we have those count data, but we don't necessarily have it published anywhere, but we can get that put out there publicly over the summer sometime probably.
Kristen, this is Rick Wynn. What would you say I view our bike capability or availability, I guess, compared to other cities. We're in our beginning stages. We're not that far advanced. Would you agree? Or so I mean, we're really trying to create the availability for bikers, which does not exist in a great deal of our streets, et cetera. Would you agree? Or, I mean, I think we're doing more. We continue to do more. So, and after COVID, I think it's probably obvious that we need to do a lot more. But how would you assess? I mean, I feel like we're doing a lot, but we're still at a beginning stage of really creating the availability of bike lanes, et cetera, throughout the city.
I would say that we're in sort of a mid-range. So we've made a lot of progress in the last, I would say, 7 to 10 years quickly. But we are very opportunistic, which is like most communities. You take advantage of what work you have. And so what's resulted is the same situation that I've worked in a couple other cities, is that you have pieces of a network placed around the community because you took advantage of piggybacking, and that always makes sense, of other street work. And that's really been amplified since the Vital Streets funding was approved by voters. So we have just a lot more work happening, and we have a lot more opportunities to make those improvements. So we just recently did our Vital Streets update to the City Commission, and we had an entire page full of items that we could simply present that were just happening with Vital Streets projects. And then we're also doing work in our department with just our annual striping program, which is some of these locations within downtown. But also we have other locations throughout the city that, again, we're trying to take advantage of our annual striping program to where we can make changes. And then, of course, the bike action plan took it to another level where we're not just looking at the lines in the map, but also the other elements that support people when they get to a destination, whether they're a long-term parker, a short-term parker, like a retail user, whether they need to self-serve their bike repair by going to a public repair stand, especially, only bike shops were recently reopened during the governor's stay-at-home order. But we just recently mapped all those locations and can eventually get that available online. And then the other elements around, like we're going to be piloting a shared micromobility, which will include electric assist bikes as well as electric scooters, hopefully starting this fall. So all these elements play together, and I think we're just continuing to grow our networks. But that bike action plan in the framework of our city strategic plan really is really going to guide that. And we really look forward to working with DGRI as a partner in improving the conditions in downtown and the ability to people to pass through downtown.
Okay, any other comments? Otherwise, Amanda, would you take, we do have a motion and a second, if you would take roll vote.
Absolutely. Luis?
Yes.
Mayor Bliss?
Yes.
KM?
Yes.
Jermel?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
And Rick?
Yes. Thanks, Kristen, by the way. All right, we're on to item number 11. Mr. Kelly, your CEO report.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll keep this brief since we are running past our 10 o'clock deadline. Just a couple of things wanted to point out. First, starting kind of specific to the last items that were up for discussion, we have a lot of work happening right now in trying to identify opportunities to have a safe reopening once the governor kind of gives the go-ahead. And so working to identify ways that our public spaces can be more accommodating both to pedestrian and bicycle traffic, but also to businesses. And so looking at, as I mentioned, kind of deploying chairs and seating, also thinking about ways that we can do markings on the pavement so that people understand how to safely come back to downtown once they get the green light. And so that's a huge focus of our work right now. Given that we're entering the nicer months and we know people are going to want to get out as kind of as soon as it's safe to do so. So a lot of focus there, and we'll continue to share more as that work unfolds. Kind of related, our ambassador team has built up to their full roster, so to speak. So the summer months are when they do a little bit more hiring to make sure that the team is built out. So they are now at full capacity to make sure that we're set and ready to go, both from the hospitality side, but also on the cleaning and sanitizing front. And so they're continuing their work. Part of that that we've been working on is coordinating with the city to get some more sanitizing stations out. So if you've been around at all in the neighborhood over the past few weeks, you've seen 4 or 5 cleaning stations pop up. Those are courtesy of the city. We are supplementing that with some of our own kind of sanitizing dispensers, if you will. And so those will be out later this week. And so that's sort of that infrastructure PPE that will continue to get out, so that when people know that that businesses are starting to reopen, that it's a safe environment that they're coming back down to. Also wanted to point out that tomorrow I will be at the county committee that is helping to make decisions on the deployment of the funding that they received from the CARES Act. So they received money from the federal government, $114 million to deploy for COVID relief efforts. Been sitting on a couple of those conversations, and Commissioner Talon also is on that committee. So they're inviting members of the community to come in and talk about opportunities to use those funds, and I'll be there tomorrow to talk through that. I think there's also some representatives from the chamber, local chamber, as well as some of the other regional chambers that'll be there. So looking forward to that discussion. 2 other projects that will be coming before you next week next month that I want to give you an update on. One is our what we're calling our Bridge South process. That is the planning effort over on the west side for dash lots 7, 8, and 9. So we have a committee together. We had a tremendous amount of response. We were almost ready to bring it we felt like it was prudent to have a little bit more discussion with that committee to make a good decision on a recommendation for a consultant. So that will come before you next month in June, as well as we have a request for proposals out that's getting evaluated right now on an update to the downtown wayfinding. And so we're excited to bring both of those for you next month. And then lastly, I just wanted to really ask the members and the board how they felt about a 9 a.m. start time. The chair and I had talked about that, given that we're kind of all in a new reality, and wanted to give you maybe an extra hour to get prepared. But if it didn't create too many problems, and if we get it on the calendar today, so that hopefully there's no conflicts coming up, just wanted to kind of do a quick poll on whether or not a 9 a.m. start time in June would also be something that you would like to continue, or if you want to go back to our original start time.
Works for me. It's Jamel.
Yeah, same thing, Luis. 9 a.m. works well.
Good.
KM, it works for me.
Yeah.
Talon, fine either way.
Ditto.
Works great for Jen.
Okay, good. Any questions for Tim? If not, we'll move on to item number 12, which is now the time for public comment. If there's anyone in the public that would like to make some comments, now is your time. Hearing none. Item 13 is board member discussion. Is there any discussion for the greater good?
This is Jamel. I just want to just shout out again the ambassadors. As I am going to and from my business every day, multiple times a day, I am seeing the ambassadors out there just doing what they have always done, but stepping it up and doing more to keep everything looking nice and clean, and being very polite and whatnot. And then also, I was just happy to see some of the restrooms that have been placed around the downtown area. So thank you.
Sounds good.
On the restroom front, I will add, you just reminded me, so the work on the Portland Loo installation will also start later this month. So we'll be seeing some permanent infrastructure come online here shortly.
All right, that's good. Well, thanks everyone. Good to see everybody. In the future, we expect, even though you're at home, that you turn your camera on. It's not fair that some of us, showered and got ready and put our makeup on, and some of you are just, I can't imagine. So that's better.
Jamel's still in his car.
All right.
Hiding.
All kidding aside, we stand adjourned. So thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great week.